What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 9 of the Eyes Wide Open podcast. I'm your host, Kiah. Welcome. This is maybe the second time you guys have seen me on cam, really speaking and talking on an episode. And this is my older brother, Cameron.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks for joining us again. He was in my meditation segment, and I'm really happy to have him for this one. As you guys can see, the title of this episode is called Healing America. And as you guys can all see, we are both people of color. We're both black, very proud. I know I am.
Absolutely, without question.
For sure. Hold on, let me move this out. Sorry, this setup is kind of wonky, but I just wanted to get on here so people could see us visually. And you could see our faces when we talk about what we're going to talk about. I sprung it on him too, so, But let's get into what's happening in America right now.
Yeah.
You are a black man. I want to say rip George Floyd and rip to every black, male, female person in America who has died unjustly due to police brutality. I 100% want to say that. Or has just encountered it wrong. Even if you didn't die, even if you just encountered police brutality because it's not right. I want to say, I'm sorry. This is not right. How you feel?
It's pretty heavy stuff going on, to be honest. It's hard to put into words. Almost 32 years of life, I'm tired. I don't know another way. It's draining. Like year after year, it's the same song and dance. You would think this level of monotony would just be getting old by this point in time, and it doesn't seem like it does.
I agree. I feel like we've seen a lot of racial situations. Our father and mother have kept us very in the loop about what has gone on in America as kids. We've been educated about our history with our family. We know the good, the bad, and the ugly, and know it in depth. And my father is a firm believer that if you know history, you don't repeat history. You choose against a lot of the negative things that you see if you know about them and you understand the chaos that it creates. And I just feel like a lot of time America hasn't really dug deep enough into their history to understand the severity of it, or they just don't take it that serious. And it is serious and it is ugly and it does need to come to an end because we're supposed to have rights. We're supposed to have, fair and equal treatment. And that is what we deserve. That is what I want to see us all get, all people. You know what I mean? But especially when we can see that it's a lot of what's happening to black men and black people in this country. I 100% want to see a change in that. And I unapologetically say that.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I've been through my fair share of experiences. I know people that have been through a lot of unjust situations with police officers and those in law enforcement. Not to say that any of them or all of them rather are bad by any means. We have family and several friends both in the military, law enforcement. We show love accordingly, regardless of your background, walk of life, or profession. And that's just what our parents raised us to believe, see the good in people.
I agree. I feel like someone posted something, a meme. I'm sure someone created the meme. I'm not sure who created it, but it just said, some professions can't have bad apples. I agree. I feel like if you are in a position where you can heavily impact somebody like that, our judges and politicians and doctors and nurses and firefighters and teachers, you need to not have hate in your heart because you are impacting generations of people who will one day lead us, or you're helping people. You should care. Have some compassion in your heart. If you're in those professions and you're coming across people in those professions, do your best to work, against that being normalized. Speak out if you see people in your professions who are mistreating anybody like that. That's not okay. We can't afford to have bad apples in these positions anymore.
Not even necessarily just having bad apples. Let's just create better habits.
Yes.
More than anything else. Like, let's just put it in the context of if you're a teacher. If you have one or several students acting out, frustrated, sorry.
You can just lean in.
Yeah, sorry.
To the mic.
They're acting out or frustrated. You can't just do what's been happening here. You can't put your hands on someone's child like that. No. What do? You show them that they are cared for, that they can be special, that they have that great potential, that they're normal like other people. You know, when your kids going through your early adolescence and then your teenagers, it's an awkward time for you because you're trying to figure out your place in life. You know, not understanding that you have all the time in the world, but they're nurturing to that. That's the thing with your teachers. You have to be nurturing. So, not to say that police officers should be more or nurturing to that degree, but a little bit more leniency in most situations wouldn't be too much to ask. Not even a stretch.
I feel as though they need to be understanding. I feel that cops need to be held to a specific standard because if you're a police officer, you go through training. We don't expect children in school to understand what teachers understand.
Agreed.
So why are we expecting citizens to 100% understand what police understand? Police have a job. They have a job description. They have, a standard. And I do hold them to a high standard. You do have power and you have authority. And a lot of people are afraid of that. And I feel like police officers as a whole have to be the example setters in the situation. Just the same way we want teachers to be the example setters and firefighters and nurses and doctors to be the example setters. Let's set the example here. How do you police properly? You know what I mean? How many complaints in people's files is too many complaints? At what point is something being done about their complaints? You know what I mean? If teachers have complaints, against students where they're doing negative things to students, I expect something to get done because you can't continually do that. There is a standard. There's an ethics code for you. There is an ethics code for police officers. I know there is. They are public servants. They are supposed to protect us. They are supposed to protect the public. I am in agreement of that. We know a lot of really great cops. A lot. I've been pulled over before by a cop who's let me go and been very nice, but I've also had encounters with cops that were not so good. And a lot of it is a power play. A lot of it can be racially motivated. I don't say that lightly. I know that's what it is. It's the way that they have a complex about a lot of black people, unfortunately.
Yeah. I have so many mixed emotions on this situation right now. It's hard to put everything in words, but one instance that I went through recently in the last couple of years, I actually had to fender bender after dropping my dad off at work. And we pulled over to the side of the road, exchanged information, got the highway patrol number and contacted them, make the reports and everything needed to be done. Everything was fine for all the 5 or 10 minutes we were on the side of the road while they were on the phone with CHP until I got weary that SAC PD, there were 3 SAC PD cop cars that pulled up right behind my vehicle. Now, I'm on edge because most people that should know if you're a licensed driver, like the highway patrol always handles most minor accidents. So 3 SAC PD cars pulling up behind me was very unnerving, unsettling. And out of nowhere, 4 or 5 doors open out of the 3 cars, and I've got at least 4 guns pointed in my direction. And my first thought is, I don't want to end up like one of these guys did. I'm going to do what I got to do to make it out of this. Put my hands behind my head as I asked and then complied, and they came, cuffed me, had an officer on each side of me after that, and the one in front said, now that you're detained, we're going to tell you what's going on. Apparently, there was a vehicle that was reported stolen, and my car supposedly fit the description. I thought that was very odd that they would come to me in the way that they did with that type of accusation and how they handled it. You're going to arrest me first and then tell me what's going on versus talking to me first, figuring out what you need to figure out, and then placing the rest and making it just.
And drawing guns on you.
That was
prior to, that's the crazy part, because in the Philando Castile case, if anybody doesn't remember, the thing that rang with me was, I can remember people always said, well, if black people would just comply, or if people would just comply, and that man did everything they asked him to do, and what happened? A cop got scared, got trigger happy, and killed him. that could have been you.
Exactly.
4 guns drawn on you, and someone just oops. It's not a oops. That's his life. It's not oops. It's not funny.
That was my mindset. I felt the exact same way. I said, this could be my last breaths I draw on earth. I want to be able to see my sister. I want to be able to see my family, my friends, whoever. And thank you. And it was, I had to be smart in this instance. I knew the right thing. I knew what was going on, but it's like, I'm not going to put my life at risk just to prove a point at this point in time.
Yep.
So once they confirmed that the vehicle was in fact registered to me, they let me go. And the guy that had the accident was just like, dude, I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm still on the phone with CHP trying to get someone out here, and they showed up like that. I'm like, exactly. Needless to say, I told my family about that. They were a lot more outwardly upset than I was, a lot more outspoken on the matter than I was. It was, for me, it's hard to talk about, because it's like, I can't relate to too many people about going through instances like this. That's not my first time with the officer pulling me over unjustly. And the level of leniency that I see people receive in certain instances is the part that I had the biggest problem with. I watched videos of a lady that actually was supposed to be given a ticket over some type of malfunction that she should have been able to take care of, argue with the officer, and even drove off on the officer. Literally drove off on the officer. And I'm thinking to myself, if this was me, I'd have 5 through my headrest right now.
Yep. And that's the reality of thinking for a lot of Black people, is that, like, oh man, if I did do something like that, I'm dead. And we should not have to think like that. If we're doing what we need to do, why are people treated inhumane? I think that a long way, the better interactions I've had with cops have been like, hey, how are you today? This is why I pulled you over. You have your license, your registration. And they're a lot more calm. It makes a better interaction with me. It makes me feel more at ease. It makes me feel more comfortable as a citizen, because I'm already nervous. Only because of what I see you go through, what I see my dad go through, what I see other people in America go through all the time on social media. It's triggering. It's scary. It is very scary to drive around and you're looking in your rear view, or you're seeing things. And even when you're not doing anything wrong, it's just the principle that if they feel threatened.
It's just the thought. It's just the thought that you're pulling me over. Mm-hmm. You're basically making me pull over to the side of the road so you can tell me that I've done something wrong, that I broke the law, or something's not right. Mm-hmm. Why come up with your weapons drawn?
Right.
That's probably one of the scariest feelings. If you never had a gun pointed at your direction, or even been around weaponry like that, it's very scary. It's like, I know people that hunted, and police officers, military. My dad's former Army.
Right.
So for me, it's like, I'm not worried about a weapon like that. But it's just the fact that you pull me over, now all of a sudden you want to have your gun drawn for no reason.
Instead of just talking
outside of your stickers out of date on your car. Right. Why is your gun drawn? For what reason?
It's unnecessary.
It's completely unnecessary.
Right.
And so the part that I find most unsettling as a Black man is that as a child, I'm preconditioned to understand what I'm supposed to do when law enforcement comes my direction. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's right.
Nope.
I shouldn't have to. And as I grow older, and I'm thinking about at some point in time I may settle down and start having kids, and I have a son or a daughter, they might have to have that same conversation with me. And that's the part that, to me, I find the most heartbreaking. I shouldn't have to have this talk with my children. I shouldn't have to tell them, even though you're not doing anything wrong or unjust, you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're following the law. There are officers out there that will, as that old mindset says, go and get them one. Mm-hmm. And that's where I have an issue with it. And it's like, I don't want to see that anymore. It gets to a point where you get tired of asking to be heard. You get tired of being silent about it. And you just get to a point where you're just like, I've asked and asked and asked. I've pleaded and pleaded and pleaded. And everything's either swept under the rug or it falls on deaf ears until it happens again. Mm-hmm. Now, just within the last decade, we've had multiple unjust killings of Black men by police officers with nothing done. It's peaceful protest, trying to bring, attention to it.
Yep.
as the mainstream media was trying to do, as your athletes and celebrities, socialites, and so on and so forth, trying to bring attention to it. And what happens? It still gets swept under the rug.
Falls on deaf ears.
It has, and it continues to fall on deaf ears. But now, this is a different generation than what we knew in the civil rights leaders fighting for rights for black people, then the Black Panthers fighting for those protection of those rights, and just asking to be heard. But then the thought of Malcolm X comes up, and there's a disdain on a lot of people's minds about him because of what he represented, which is essentially what's been going on by any means necessary. It's like we're constantly asking for this. It's like we're constantly asking to be heard. We're constantly asking for stop killing us. We're constantly asking for that. Why is it still happening? Why do we still have to have these conversations?
It's
in order for things to get better, I feel that everyone has to have an honest and introspective moment with whomever and just lay it out there. Racism is real. Racism is out there. Racism is not going away anytime soon. But what can we do to better our standings amongst each other with going into the future? I think you're bringing life into this world. You don't want your kids to grow up with this and their kids to grow up with this. Like, this is ridiculous.
Thank you.
Certain things are going to need to change, and this is one of them. So we have to be uncomfortable sometimes to get a solution that you've never got.
And it's crazy because our family is very mixed when it comes to colors and different races and religions and how people are.
Absolutely.
We were not raised to shun anybody because of the color of their skin. My dad has always been an advocate for make friends with diverse groups of people, get to know them, talk to them, have conversations with them, try to do your best to understand them so that you aren't ignorant to what they're talking about or what they're going through or what their life may be. And that's a lot of why I started my platform. Well, if you listen to episode 1 and how I talk about my dad's impact on me, on my brothers, and what he says, he is a very noble man. He gets that from the men in his family, from being that. And, we have our great-great-grandfather is a white man. I mean,
we were taught to appreciate you because of the person that you are.
100%.
Not the color of your skin. You show me your character.
Yes.
And that's how I make my judgment, same as her. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're Hispanic or Asian, whatever, what have you. You show me who you are, and I'm going to believe you. And we're either going to be cool or I'm going to keep it cordial if I see you. That's just how we operate, how we move. And it's not stressful.
No.
Like, you learn who your real friends are down the road. Like, everybody's not going to be your friend. But you still don't have to treat everyone else in the world like they're less of a person.
Exactly. And that's what I think police officers as a whole, especially racist police officers, need to understand. You may be a police officer, but you're not better than anybody else in this country. You are not above anybody else in this country. Like, on moral ground, to me, we're the same. I show you respect. You pull me over, I pull over, I comply, I'm nice. Show me a little respect and treat me like a person. Don't feel like you have to be so threatened by me or him or the next black person. That's something that as if you're a police officer out there, something you can do to impact it. Set the tone, set the example that you want to set. Don't feel like you have to go in a situation trying to gain power over it. You can go in and be, comfortable. Hi, how are you today? Etc. This is why I pulled you over. Etc.
Definitely.
We've been pulled over, not just me and not just you, but they're condescending. Where you drive this car? And it's like, why can't I drive this car? Why can't I be in this neighborhood? Why am I not good enough for that? It's not all, but one is too many. One is too many. I'm just a firm believer of that. One is too many.
Then another thing that helped me through all of this is knowing that I need to understand the law.
Yes.
And personal knowledge comes in is a big factor in this as for anyone, especially those of color.
Mm-hmm.
If you get pulled over and you suspect, something's not right, it's good to be educated and know what are my rights, what are the laws of my state, of my particular city, what are the legalities of what this police officer is able to do. Those are things that you need to arm yourself with. That knowledge is very impactful, because if someone tries to tell you, oh, I need to search your vehicle, and you know your laws that they cannot legally search your vehicle without any type of consent or warrant present, you're getting yourself in trouble or going through an experience you don't have to go through.
That happened to me, but I will tell you, I was just afraid. I was afraid to assert myself because I was alone, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning. It was still kind of dark outside, and it was one of those things that's like, I could end up the next Sandra Bland or the next hashtag, so I just let them do it. And that's what I mean. It's like, that should not be how anybody feels. Not just me, but anybody. The principle that I had to go through, that is the bad part. Like, that's the thing I feel like people don't speak up on, is like, why are cops so like power hungry? And not all. If you're a good cop, I'm not talking about you.
There are good cops. They've always been
You're a good
cops.
cop.
We grew up
I'm
in a
not talking about
neighborhood
you.
in Mississippi where literally, 2 minutes up the road, the sheriff in the city was right there on the street. Knew our family well. Never had any issues with him. We got friends we went to school with, or law enforcement, National Guard, all walks of life.
There was one time I was coming home from school and I was speeding. Definitely was speeding. He pulled me over. He said, I know your dad. What's your phone number? And he called my dad. He let me go. No ticket, no nothing, but he called my dad. And I appreciated that. I was young. I appreciated that he did that. And it made me very, very, very aware. My dad was able to have a conversation with me. And that's how that was resolved. I'm not saying that's how every situation will be for people, but it was the principle that he chose a different route. Sometimes a different route is okay. Every situation doesn't have to be so forceful.
It all starts with the mindset, though. You have to go in knowing that I can't be abrasive to this particular individual. And because then that's going to make the other party apprehensive. That's just normal human interaction. Someone comes to you in a foul mood, especially if you work a job in service or retail, you get those customers on a daily basis.
Yes.
Somebody's mad as hell about something, whether it was item broke or bill inquiry, something. And they are pissed. I'm sorry for my language, but yeah, they're pissed. And you got to maintain your demeanor. And do your job, because you're a representation of a larger group, larger corporation.
Yes.
The officers are the same thing. That's honestly, and most people, forgive me for saying it like this, like that's like the biggest gangs in most places.
Yeah.
Is the police.
Yeah.
Anywhere that you go. So for me, it's like if you're a representation of your organization and this is how you treat people, then something's not right and something needs to be done. This is why the first thing a customer says if you act out of character is, I want to talk to your manager.
Exactly. And as somebody who is a leader in a role of leadership, if I were to see any of my leaders or fellow leaders doing something unjust, I absolutely don't mind letting them know. From a place of love, because like we need to set the example. We are the example setters. Exactly.
That's all people want to see is, as a start, is accountability. Hold your people accountable for the things that they do.
How's a way that you think that can be done within the police force, that people can be better held accountable, cops can be better held accountable when they do, make those choices?
It's the same as how you do your job as a leader. Literally the exact same thing. More physical work, obviously, but it's the exact same principle behind it. You have an employee that's not doing what they need to be doing, or doing things that they know for a fact or go either against policy, or saying things that they know shouldn't be said at work. You hear and or see and are told these things, first thing you do is what?
I mean, I investigate and then I go make.
You investigate. You look at the facts for what's happened.
Yep.
Why did it happen this way? What prompted this? Was there something else that could have been said that may have triggered that reaction from her? Like, you go and get your credentials together for it.
But I mean, obviously they say that they do investigation, but I mean, as far as the way that the police are currently policed, these guys have, so many complaints in their file and there's never anything done about it. What's the step at the police departments at that way? What's that next step look like?
See, that's the chain of command that you got to follow. So you being in your position, if it's something that's above your power to address, then you have to go up to a superior to
Right,
give
but
them the info.
obviously it's not working in the police.
Right.
Their chain of
And
command
this is
doesn't
why-
do anything to them.
And this is why now it's at a point where people are out or mad and they're showing, and they're not afraid to show it. Like I said, this is a completely different generation. Civil rights leaders, peaceful protests. What happened?
So something that someone said, it was a great solution to me. I heard it on the Breakfast Club this morning. Shout out to them. He said, I feel like cops need to have reevaluation every year or two, the same way people who drive do. And in order to drive, we have to make sure that we don't have so many points on our driving record. Otherwise, we get it stripped. So when they go in and you look at their file for reassessment and they have a ton of complaints like that, why do they still get to be a cop? I would not still be a manager if I had 15 to 20 complaints about mistreatment like that. I wouldn't still be in the position I'm in probably if I had, racially motivated complaints against me that many times and a lawsuit and 50, it just wouldn't happen. I wouldn't still have my job. And that's what I mean is like, what's the next step? Somebody, if the police chiefs and the people in their building aren't reprimanding them properly, maybe that person doesn't get to reprimand them anymore. Maybe somebody else needs to be reprimanding the police officers. Like, I feel like there's got to be a change. We have to hit our local governments very hard. We have to hit our national governments very hard. I know that, voting in the presidential election, 100% people say it doesn't change anything. I'm with y'all. I get it. But I mean, there's got to be some tangible next steps in order to make a difference in this community, in these communities, in our world. Like, there has to be. I look at the lawmakers, I look at our president to be a leader. And I don't mean like I look at Donald Trump. I mean, literally, I look at people who say they're going to lead this country to lead us into peace, lead us into a better nation than what you're saying or what you're seeing. Obviously, there's something wrong with what the chaos is right now. Obviously, something's wrong. Obviously, something's not being heard. People aren't being heard. I mean, I've said it before. Colin Kaepernick protested that knee very calmly for months. And people made that out to be everything except for what it was. And I feel like that is extremely disrespectful. I feel like it's been disrespectful. I feel like America, there was a time for you to sit and listen. I feel like the government, there was a time for you to say, well, let's hear Colin Kaepernick out for real and let's really talk to him and let's look at racism in this country.
And it's year for year is the same thing, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, literally, it comes to light for a brief moment. There's some brief, quiet, peaceful protesting. And then out of nowhere, we've looked onto the next thing. Now we've swept this under the rug temporarily. That's exactly what's been happening. And now people are sick of it.
Yep.
People are finally outraged enough to the point where this is happening way too much. And for those of you that will say, the All Lives Matter movement versus the Black Lives Matter movement, I understand both sides of the argument. I definitely understand why everybody feels the way they do. I agree. All lives matter. I agree. Black lives matter too. As a black man in America, I'm going to say that without question. But until Black Lives Matter, all lives really can't matter.
Yep.
That's what this argument's about.
Yep.
I love everyone, all my friends, all my family from every different walk of life. I don't care what you do, what you look like. But the stigma around the fear of a black man for some reason is hard to overlook for people. And that's the issue with Black Lives Matter. It may appear racist to some people, and once you explained your points to me, I understood that. But then, how often should we be asking to be treated as people?
Fairly.
Why do we still feel the need to ask to be treated like people? And now we're at a point now where people are tired of asking.
Yes.
We're at a point now where you need to fix this.
Yes.
Finally need to fix this.
Yes.
And we're about to find out essentially what's going to happen with the rest of the world watching as well.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to see how things fall into place. I definitely want things to get better. I want to see better relations amongst people of different ethnic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, and I want people to be able to get along. But I also want to be respected.
Thank you.
For what I am, not just stereotyped.
Yes.
Or assume, oh, he's got dreads, he's probably about this. Oh, he's tall, he probably plays basketball. That gets old. It's like, I know how to conduct myself in a professional manner, so that's how I'm going to move. But I'm mindful of what you said, and I'll always keep memory that that's how you view me.
Yep. Yep. I feel as though there's a lot of people, you know, that I see. We grew up in Mississippi, and I said it to a friend of mine. I said, I just feel like all growing up, I had to hear the South will rise again, Confederate flag waved in my face, like,
told black people, white people don't mix.
Yeah, I've been told a lot of very unfortunate things and been through a lot of unfortunate experiences growing up there. And they have molded me and shaped me here. But if anybody knows me, you know I don't mistreat people because of the color of their skin. I never have. And I've never let any of those experiences, you or me, have never let any of those experiences make us, you know, mistreat people. Yeah. But I feel like coming from us, it's like when I say I just want fair treatment, genuinely believe just because you guys hear me and I speak well, or you know me and you know that I'm an intelligent person, you know he's intelligent, you know that we're pretty law-abiding people, we get stereotyped all the time. We get people who look at us like they're just another N-word walking around. I promise you, you with your dreadlocks, I'm telling you, me as a black woman, we get that often.
Absolutely.
Very often.
And it gets old very fast, and that's why I can say I'm tired. I don't like where things have gone. I don't like how things have escalated to the point that they've escalated. I understand the rioting. I've definitely made my peace with that, but the looting is something that I'm not really, I can't get behind that.
I'm not against...
I understand why everything's happening. I just don't see why stealing things from a location...
Correct.
...helps the cause of what we're trying to accomplish.
A lot of people I've had people reach out to me, and I have to explain, like, my calmness with that is not my agreeance in it by any means. I just understand what it is a byproduct of, and I understand you're going to have a lot of crazy people, you know, opportunists, come out and do what they need to do in order to get something, and don't lump that in with people who are out protesting for the rights. Don't lump those same individuals in, because they're not the same. Rioters and protesters, to me, I mean, come on. That's clearly not the same thing. I've seen a lot of amazing protests, beautiful, peaceful protests that the media doesn't, you know, focus their energy on so much. They are focusing on the people with skateboards busting in windows and shop windows. And I've seen people, first of all, of multiple different races looting and rioting. It's not just black people. It is not. It is very many races of people out here stealing vans and busting up in the Gucci store and all other things. But none of that means more to me than this man's life. I care about justice for this man and his life. I looked at what happened with MLK when they assassinated him in 1968, April 4th. Side note, that's the day I put out the situation for this podcast. That's what's funny. But April 4th, 1968, he was assassinated, and there was like $47 million worth of damage in this country after that. Because he had to be a martyr for his own cause. People always talk about him being a peaceful leader, but he got shot and killed by a racist. Obviously enough didn't change. Like, there's got to be more change. If you are a non-person of color, how you can support your friends who are people of color, have conversations with them. Don't dismiss it when they talk to you about their experiences. Don't try to act like their experiences aren't real. They're very real.
You have to be, like I said earlier, you have to be open to the thought of an uncomfortable conversation.
Yes.
And as you get older, you're going to have a lot of those. You're going to talk about things you never in your life thought you were going to talk about. This possibly being one of them. People get comfortable in life, and people just accept things for what they are, just or unjust. they don't want to question it. They don't want to push the boundaries.
I agree.
And you can't be afraid of that. You can't grow as an individual without being uncomfortable
Also,
in any situation.
Educate yourselves on the history of what's happened in America. Like, I'm a firm believer, if you understand what has happened, you make better choices for what you can do in the future. Make friends with people. If you have children, put your kids around kids of multiple different races, different diversities. Help them understand that there are people who are different, that look different, that talk different, who some of them grow up in the hood, some of them are going to be quote unquote ghetto, some of them are going to talk different from you, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that there's, anything wrong with them. You will meet some of the most beautiful people from all walks of life, and all you have to do is be willing to put yourself out there and have a conversation.
And this is not something that you should want to teach your kids in the first place.
It's not.
Like, imagine you being a 7, 8-year-old child. You have friends in your neighborhood that are white.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
And he was over a buddy's house, just hanging out like always, and he decides, hey, I want you guys to stay the night. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll ask my parents. I don't have a problem with that. And they ask their parents. For some reason, they got the okay to stay from their parents, just like I got the okay to stay from mine. But his parents, the guy that wanted us to sleep over, did not want me to stay, but they were okay with the other two staying. So I thought I did something wrong. As a kid, it's like, did I offend them? Did I do something I wasn't supposed to do? I didn't know. And
how old were you, for context?
8 or 9.
Yeah, 8 or 9 years old.
And the first thing, and he looked at me just
tears in his eyes.
Tears and tearful, and just said, you know what color you are? And that's when it hit me, like, this is how his parents, her mom, or somebody viewed me.
Yep, you're
and
black.
I left, and I was upset. I went home and I cried to my parents. It's like, what did I do wrong?
Yep.
Like, I'm respectful. When I'm asked not to do something, I don't do it. I speak to everybody. What did I do?
None of that mattered.
And that's like, why would you subject a child to that? I didn't do anything to your son. He asked me to come over. He felt comfortable enough for me to stay the night. I've never done anything to any of his family. And that moment, it's like, this is how his mom views me.
This is his family.
And I didn't know how to take that. And to live with that, it's those type of instances year after year as you get older. It's like, why do I have to go through this? Why me? Right. Why, just because of the color of my skin, are you so afraid or threatened or just don't
prejudiced? Yeah.
Now, if I'm a jerk or an insensitive person or stupid, whatever that's fine. You're entitled to feel the way you feel about me in that regard. At least at least I know it's not about.
It's about your character at that point.
I could be the most God-fearing person and live my life for the Lord every day. Not smoke, not drink, not anything. And people will still look at me different because of how I live.
Yep.
Until they talk to me.
Even then. Even when they talk to you. His parents have seen you and spoken to you several times. And that didn't make a lick of difference.
That's the biggest thing. They know our parents.
That's exactly it.
The people we come from. They know what we're about.
I'm going to take a quick break for a second and switch out my devices, okay? I'll be right back, guys. Hi guys, we are back. I had to swap out my devices, so I'm sorry it took a second. But we just finished speaking about some of the experiences that you've gone through and I've gone through, even being kids, you know what I mean? And when that's your reality and you're experiencing things at 7, 8, 10, another classmate of mine, a teacher in the inner city of New Orleans, was explaining to me, it's a lot of these kids' reality is like, Daddy got shot by the police last night, like, at 6 and 7, like it's so sad. And when I say shot, I don't mean just shot and taken into custody, shot and killed. They no longer have a parent. Their home is now broken. It's really, really sad that we have a lot of things like this that happen. And it seems like, hey, this is unjust. This is a crime people are committing that should not warrant death. They should have their just due in court. And we need to get good cops to be the only cops who are enforcing that kind of behavior. That should be the goal, is to give people their justice. Just due.
I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. you see things like this and don't realize how it affects everyone else around them too. On top of that, like you have these girls whose fathers have been taken away, and now all of a sudden, because their dad's not in their life, they have a daddy complex, as some people would put it. And
Right.
that's not fair to them to stereotype them that they're this type of person because they don't have their father around. Some people, unfortunately, never got to meet their fathers. My mom's dad, my grandfather, I never met this man because he died of cancer before I was born. So I'm thinking of, losing a parent. I can only imagine. Like my dad's lost both. My mom's lost one. I can't even imagine what that pain and that hurt does to a young child on top of that, and how that influences how they're going to grow up and what they can become in this world because they don't have that support of that father figure in their life.
And not even just their kids, but I've heard so many stories on the news and people talk about what their children are asking them now. Kids are like, Mom or Dad, is anything going to happen to you? Or, they're confused because they're seeing it. And, I'm sure that's a very sensitive topic, how some people feel if their kids should know or if they shouldn't know. But if it's a real reality in front of them, or if they've already seen it happen in front of them, like, you can't lie. You got to be honest with what's happening and explaining it to them. So, and
once again, that involves you putting yourself in an uncomfortable and sometimes vulnerable situation where you don't have a choice but to speak up on certain things and certain topics and, nip that in the bud. The more you keep sweeping it under the rug, the bigger the problem becomes when it's exposed for how long it's been swept under.
I agree. That's why I say some of the key things that, we can do as a society. We can get out there and we can vote. And I don't mean just, vote a little bit. Like, check into your local elections. We need different systems. We need different laws. Like, we need to demand the changes that we want to see, Like I mentioned earlier, how these police officers are reprimanded. Maybe the police chief isn't doing enough. Maybe it's got to be somebody above them that's reprimanding all the police officers. You know what I mean? Maybe every case that's happening, they have their file and they need to be checked.
And
100%.
Therein lies the reason why people believe that this is a broken system.
Exactly.
Because of all that inconsistency, once you start trying to get to the top and try to figure out why this happened. Why is this the protocol for this individual versus he had a similar bust on somebody else and was completely, lenient.
Right. I think the solutions are that we as people, definitely Black people, but as a people and as a whole, if you care to stop this type of violence, if you care to stop police brutality, like what happened to George Floyd, like what happened to Philando Castile, you gotta work to change the system. And that's what I believe the flaw is at the system. I don't think it's just one person's fault at this point. I think it's America's fault. I think over all these years, this has been a problem that America, as you say, has swept under the rug. And I think we have to come together and demand that the system be changed. I don't even know 100% how we go about that, but I believe that's the way. If you are a person in politics and you come across my podcast and you've got ways to do it, reach out, let me know. I want to know what I can do, what any of us can do in our communities. How do we make changes? And among the people, police officers have a little more compassion, have a little more understanding. People who are just out, like I say, introduce your kids to diverse groups of kids, get them exposed to multiple kinds of people so they're not afraid of people when they get older and they have to have a job. And maybe they do want to protect people, but they are afraid of other races. Go ahead and expose your kids to different races of people so that's not an issue.
Start a dialogue. And it may seem scary to you, but it's got to take place. It's no different than the birds and the bees talk and where babies come, how babies are made. Like that's, most parents fear even having to discuss that with their kids, but you have to have these conversations.
That was my best friend Ashley. She spoke to me. She said, I thought in her podcast, if you guys don't know, her podcast is I Am Her by Ashley D. It's on Apple. Shout out, best friend. But she said, And I quote it, I thought the hardest talk I'd have to have with my two daughters was on the birds and the bees, and I put my foot in my mouth. I mean, I think talking to your kids about racism and the things that happen is very important. I think when you don't talk to your kids at an early age about what that is, I think you fail them. I think a lot of people think it's too taboo to discuss in school, but it's not. Your kids are going to be among, you know, different groups of kids, so you may as well talk about it when they get in school. Let them know that there's different races of people out there. Show them pictures of you with your friends of different races. You set the example as a parent and get you friends of different races and different cultures. Get on Google. You have the biggest search tool you've ever had now, more than what we had when we were kids in the 90s, for sure, for sure. So there's a lot of resources out there to you. There's books, you know, whenever you guys are buying books for your kids, that's huge. Get them books with like different races of people, different cultures of people. That really shows them that it's really skin deep when you get down to it. You know, it's like we all bleed red. And if that's the message you believe, practice it, send it out, like, you know, embody that. Embody that love, embody that compassion for your fellow brethren in this nation. You know, there's people who go out there and fight for our lives every day on the front line, and they come here and don't feel like their life means anything. And this isn't something that I'm making up. This is stuff I see people speak up on their own behalf. So if they can go out and fight for your life, you stay here and fight for theirs in this country at least, you know?
Like that support, that genuine support, fighting for a cause that's not your own, may not even affect you directly, but that speaks a lot to a person's character, to take time out of what they could be doing and putting that energy to good use for something that they feel that strongly about. That's what that's one of the best ways you can show your support and your love for that is you acknowledge that you do appreciate Black people as a whole, and just continue to show that support and that solidarity with us, and things can start to get better. It's like you just want to make sure that everyone feels inclusive. In fact, if all lives really do matter, so help that one. So all that's happening right now with that is just helping that one group feel what you feel.
Yep. If you feel love and you feel support by your president or your, you know, community and things that are going on with you, I feel as though you have to show it. You have to put your actions where you say your heart is. Make sure that you are not being, you know, definitely not overtly racist, but not even slightly low-key racist, you know? Like I spoke in my last podcast about experiences I had that people probably never even realized was racial to me, but it is. You know, it's things, it's like, wow, I can't believe someone just said that to me. And when we speak up on behalf of those things, I get a lot of backlash from people where they're like, it wasn't even that serious. And it's like, to you, to you, be a little more open, be a little more compassionate with your hearts, with your minds, be open to listening.
No one should have to wake up with that type of trauma day after day, year after year, decade after decade. Like, I mean, I can only imagine what Dad's upbringing was like.
Oh, yeah.
64 years of age.
He went through integration.
Right. And I can't even imagine.
In the South.
That's what this is going to end up being if things go south. And that's what I'm a little bit afraid of. Because I was like, at this age, it's like, with the way things have been, you get kind of comfortable with it. And then it comes and disrupts your peace. So some people are terrified about this.
Right. I agree. I've heard a lot of people that are afraid. But I feel like if you're afraid, that first step, we got to start to show love. We got to start to open up our eyes and pay attention to what's going on. And I said it in a tweet, you know, at some point, you're just going to be ignorant to what's going on here because you're not allowing yourself to be understanding to what's going on here, because it's a very real problem. What happened to George Floyd was a complete travesty. Like, that should have never, ever happened. You know,
it was preventable.
Very preventable.
100% preventable.
As are most cases.
What reason do you have to stay on someone's neck for that long? Almost 10 minutes.
And there's another angle from the other side where they're on his legs.
Exactly.
Like,
So,
it's too much for me to, it's like, my heart sinks when I start to think about the malice behind it. That's what's so disgusting to me. It's like, why? Like, why not just put him in the cop car, get him out of here, and take him to jail? I think it was like a check for 20 or $25 or something, like counterfeit. Get the man his day in court and let's move on, because he wouldn't have died behind that. Like, that's not something he would be dead behind. And now a situation that was supposed to be quick, simple, give the man his just due, turned into a whole death that didn't have to be, and created this entire situation right here. I mean, that's factual to me.
no, I can agree with that. Definitely.
So, like you said, work to show that community some love. That's why I said these cards. That's why they were key to me. I kid you not. I think that it takes acts of kindness. I think it takes you to have uncomfortable conversations. And I was reading, and it's Malcolm X. He said in there, a white woman walked up to him and said, "What can I do to help?" And he told her nothing. And he later said that was his biggest mistake, because he should have informed her and educated her on what she could do. I don't want to tell y'all not to do nothing. I want all people of all races to step up and make this a us problem, as we all say it is. As it is an us problem, not a us black people problem, but this is a us America problem. And we as Americans need to work together to fix this problem that has been going on against black people, period. Because if this was going on against any other race, I would feel just as passionately, because of who I am as a person. I don't like injustice like that. I'm not for it,
It's just not right.
100.
And that's what we're fighting for, is what's right.
I agree.
Everyone saw the same thing. The reports came out, in fact, saying that this was, in fact, homicidal asphyxiation.
Yes.
At this point in time, justice truly has to be served. Because if it's not, that's when people should be afraid.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I'm following this case. I'm definitely staying up to date. I think a lot of Americans are. Go back and educate yourself on past cases that have happened. If you're just unsure, if you've just been out of the loop, go back and go to YouTube. Look at what's in the loop. Look at some factual videos. Go read up on a couple of cases and just understand like what's happened historically here, so you can make better choices. There's so many different people that and resources that are out there for us to go to. So I want to be a resource. If you know Cameron and you want to have a conversation with Cameron, he's a great resource as well. He's a wonderful listener, a wonderful person. He wants to help people progress. He wants to help people, be better in the world as I do. I want to be better every day too. Trust me, I'm not perfect.
I want to see everybody be happy at the end of the day. And that's what matters to me more than anything else. And if my few words that I offer you can help you through your day, then I've done something right, and I feel really good about that.
Right.
So I thank you for the privilege of being part of your show.
Thank you.
Once again, and I thank you all for taking your time to listen to both of us, and
Absolutely.
It's always appreciated.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the platform. I know this episode's a little long, but I appreciate you. I value you for tuning in. I know these conversations can sometimes get uncomfortable or awkward, but just understand my passion comes from being passionate about people, being passionate about my people, my future. Sorry to say, but this is my brother, my blood brother here. And, I don't want that next hashtag to be him or my other brother or my other brother
Or
my nephews.
Or my god kids,
Absolutely.
my friends,
Yes.
my friends' spouses, wives, anyone. I don't want to see injustice done to anyone, but right now in this moment is about our people.
100%.
And that's where my focus and energy is. And that's where it's going to remain until things are just.
Yes. So, again, you guys can follow along more on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube and Anchor, Eyes Wide Open Podcast. You can follow me personally on Instagram at Kiah. You can follow my Twitter page. It's at Kiah. Feel free to reach out to me, talk to me. I'm totally down for conversations.
She's amazing. If you've been listening all this time, you should already know.
Thank you. You are so sweet. I appreciate you, brother.
Of course.
But thank you for being here and sharing this platform with me right now to talk about it. And just, especially visually, he didn't really want to get on like cam. But I was like, they need to see our faces, brother.
I'm like, fine. I'll do it just for you.
Thank you. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And next week, we're going to pick back up with talking about chakras and other healing elements. But today I wanted to talk about how we heal America and how we start to pick our feet up one by one, step by step, to make positive changes amongst each other in our community. And I believe change starts in your community first. And if all the communities begin to breed change, you have a nation of change. Okay? So I will talk to you guys next week on Wednesday. Every Wednesday you will hear me. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys next time.
Tune in, guys.